Today, I'm going to be sharing with you my top tips for the long case finish line. Let's do this. So if you've been to my long case live tutorial, you'll know that I'm quite into mindset hacks for the long case itself. So we talked about mindset for the actual exam, when you're sitting with the examiner, being able to get into character as your future consultant self, also sitting at the table with the examiner, being a boss, being able to synthesize information, come up with wonderful management plans, all of that good stuff. But today I want to talk about a different type of mindset. I think when it gets to this stage before the exam, when we're just in the few weeks leading up to it, a lot of things can happen that can rock your confidence, and you start to catastrophize and build this up in your head, and then you can fall apart. And certainly I relate to this. Definitely that happened to me before the exam. When I was more relaxed, I was doing so much better than just before the exam, when I was overthinking things, making things more complicated than they needed to be, not having a lot of confidence in my own ability to get through a long case reliably and consistently, and just falling apart. But what I'm going to talk about today are mindset hacks so that you get to the exam with mental well-being, so that you don't completely derail yourself and become a nervous wreck beforehand. So the first mindset trick I'm going to share with you is disconnect from failure. So a recent example in my own life, just yesterday actually, is I forgot to put out my bins. Now I've done this 2 weeks in a row, which is, disappointing and a bit of a life fail. And yes, I could probably blame the fact that I'm in lockdown in Victoria and, how am I meant to know what day it is and whatnot. But ultimately, I should really know when Thursday is, and I should really know to put my bins out. And somehow, for 2 weeks in a row, I have consistently been unable to do this, right? How annoying. So that is a fail on my behalf. And I know that there are some lessons in that failure that I should really be taking on board and then putting into practice next week, right? I should remember to set an alarm on my phone so that next week I shall put my bins out successfully and I will feel more like a responsible adult. That's the plan. That's okay. So I'm taking the lessons from it and I'm putting them into practice. What I'm not doing with this is incorporating it into my self-talk. I'm not being like, oh my God, I forgot to put the bins out, therefore I'm the most disorganized human in the world. I'm not taking it personally. It doesn't reflect on me. It's just something that happened that I could do better at, right? So if we take that example, there are some failures in our life that happen where we just learn from them and move on. Contrast that with the type of failure that we can feel when we're doing something like a clinical exam. We study for so long to be doctors, it can feel like it's who we are. And that can be complicated when you're doing a clinical exam and suddenly you're not feeling like you're doing a good job, right? So suddenly you can start to make the connection that, I'm not very good. Maybe I'm not supposed to be a doctor or whatever. And you can start to tell yourself all these little stories that are insane. And I'm here to tell you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, and you might not see this right now, but I can tell you wholeheartedly that being a doctor is only one tiny facet of who you are as an entire human being. You are so much more than just a doctor. And yes, it took years to get there. And yes, it was effortful. And yes, it is a huge part of your life. Yes, it is not who you are, right? I really want you to hear that. Being a doctor is not who you are. And so when it comes to this exam, I want you to disconnect from any failures. If you've just gone into a trial exam and you didn't do very well, so what? If you bomb a short case, so what? That does not mean you're not a good doctor. It does not mean you are going to fail. It does not mean you can never do another good short or long in your whole life. What it means is, just like me putting the bins out or not putting the bins out, as the case definitely was, there's something there for me to learn. Just use that failure as a lesson and nothing else. Leave all the emotional stuff behind. You don't have to take that with you. So disconnect from perceived failure. Do not let it become your identity. Disconnect. My second hot tip for the long case finish line is affirmations you actually believe. Affirmations are something that I found to be quite double-edged in the past. So if you try and use an affirmation that builds you up too much, you're not going to get behind it. So you don't want to be saying, I am going to get perfect marks in this exam. I am the best long case candidate in Australia. Like, those are probably not realistic for most of us, right? Like, they're probably a little bit far-fetched. So something I would do is change that affirmation to something you actually believe. For example, I can do a good long case. I can do a good short case. I can take a history and present it within the allocated time. I can formulate excellent management plans. I can articulate myself well. I can synthesize information and present it to the examiners in a polished and professional fashion. All of those things are probably true, right? So you need to tell yourself that when you go into the exam, when you go into your next long case, just tell yourself, I can do a good long case. Go in there and do a good long case. You will do better, I promise you. And if nothing else, it will soothe your nervous system, right? So I actually use this, apart from Reno tutorials, I'm a singer-songwriter as well, but I have terrible stage fright, right? It's a nightmare. And one of the golden things that helped me get over stage fright was when I started using affirmations I actually believed. So instead of being like, I am amazing and I have greatness in me and blah, which was what I was kind of being told to do, I use the affirmation, I can sing this song well. And that was true, because in my house, when no one was around, I was singing the song way better than when I got up on stage and became an absolute train wreck. So I can sing this song well had got me through many a performance since, and I still use it before I get on stage because it's helpful. So affirmations you actually believe, absolutely gold when it comes to fixing that mindset and changing your negative self-talk to positive self-talk. And if you do that, I think you'll find a big difference in how you feel and your confidence going into the exam. So the key thing at this stage is to not let yourself unravel. You have worked very hard to get to this stage. And if you start letting these little failures get in your way and become part of your story, you're going to be a nervous wreck on that day. You're going to fall apart. So disconnect from failure. Understand that if there was any kind of failure, it's a lesson. You take the lesson and you leave all the negative narrative behind you. Step 1. Step 2, affirmations you actually believe. I can do a long case well, and go forth and do just that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon for some more high yield learning. Bye.